and welcome to The Ripple Impact, the podcast where we dive into those fascinating small moments, big decisions, and unexpected ripples that shape careers, brands, leadership, and life. I'm Laura Barber, founder of The Ripple Impact. After 20 years leading brand strategy inside global giants like PepsiCo and Coca-Cola, I now help founders and leaders turn human stories into brand growth. Each week, I sit down with bold thinkers, founders, and what we call wave maker guests to explore the ripple moments that have shaped their journey and the lessons you can take to transform your own brand and your business. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to have Abby Dixon with us. She is marketing leader, coach extraordinaire, writer, and the founder of the Whole Marketeer, a consultancy dedicated to building fulfilled, confident, successful marketing teams. Abby is an award-winning marketeer and marketing consultant with 25 years experience, step-changing growth for many household brands and businesses across sector, industry, and teams. She is known for her honest voice, her book, her amazing podcast, and her work supporting leaders through burnout, capability building, and career crossroads. But what most people don't know is a deeply human story behind her journey. Abby, welcome to the show. It's an absolute delight to have you here with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a delight. It's so amazing because so many people know your wonderful voice from the Whole Marketeer. So it's incredible to roll reverse and have you on the podcast today and to hear your story. So thank you so much for being with us. Does it feel weird when you're on the other side of the podcast when you're normally hosting?
Actually, it feels a little bit more enjoyable, actually. I'm a bit like, oh, what are the questions? Where are we going to talk about?
Where are we going to go?
I don't have to do the intro and I don't have to, be listening in with intent for the next question. That's all on you today, Laura.
I know, it's all on me. All the pressure as well when you got such a professional podcaster in front of you and then you're interviewing, all the nerves are coming. So no, I'm chuffed for this. So thank you again. We love on the Ripple Impact to wind back to the beginning and what shaped people's journey, what's created their sense of character, style, communication, and ultimately what's led their career today. And I'd love to walk back to those early ripples that we talked about when we first met. And you shared incredible stories of your childhood, growing up as a forces child, moving countries, experiencing incredible cultures. And that's been a huge part of who you are today. Can you wind us back to what your childhood looked like, the incredible people that have shaped you and shaped your ability to connect with people so quickly, to understand cultural nuances, read the room instinctively, and really instill the values that you hold dear today?
Definitely. So, as you just mentioned, was a forces child, which as a result meant that we did move a lot. We moved across different countries, across different counties, and often was the new kid at school because obviously with those moves and with those posts, we moved with my father's work and therefore, was often that new kid at school, which isn't always the nicest experience to have, but has given me a lot of skills that I guess the average person that hasn't had those experiences. So it means that, being able to kind of read friendship groups or understand kind of the dynamics behind who's playing with who or who's interacting with who, being able to kind of think about what am I going to bring to this group to kind of for them to let me in. And obviously the need, if you wanted someone to play with at playtime, you had to make those connections, enter those groups really quickly. Otherwise it's going to be a very lonely 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was definitely part of it. But I also grew up between cultures. So I am half Maltese, half British by origins. Although a British citizen, I grew up with a Maltese mother and English father. My mother and father met when my dad was stationed in Malta, kind of a classic forces story, and then they married and brought her back to this country and around the world they traveled. And therefore I did grow up between two cultures, the Mediterranean, the classically British, but also we moved into multiple countries, into the States, into Germany. And so therefore I was also then thrown in amongst other cultures, but also because of my dad's role, a lot of his roles were like cultural attaché roles or roles where he was there to kind of do liaison across countries. And so you'd have different countries there in those US bases, for example. So, it was very normal for us to be hanging out with an Argentinian family on Friday, then be with another family from Australia on the weekend, and then be back in amongst American culture on Monday, going to high school or whatever we were doing. So flexing between And sometimes you're not always being able to share the same language.
Yeah, of
So
course.
yeah, so you wanting to play with the children with the Argentinian family, being able to have kind of communication would be through body language or through signals or through gestures or picking up the odd word in maybe Spanish so that we could say something. Think about their language and the words that we could learn in order to get those key communication points over. But also not just the words and the actions to communicate, but also the cultural differences,
Yeah.
how they celebrated Christmases, how they communicate, the status, the way it works with
Mm.
parents or their family or the dynamics, so much more. So it really allowed me to have an appreciation that I think most people don't have access to growing up. And also with all of that combined, being able to connect with people on multiple levels from multiple cultures has definitely allowed me to use those skills in my role today.
Yeah, such an incredible upbringing and such a privilege to meet so many people from so many different walks of life and different countries and cultures. I love the thought that your storytelling through gestures and pointing and where there is no language consistency, that you're still creating this storytelling between people and gives you such a sense of empathy and culture. So what an incredible environment to grow up in. Did that inspire you to where you are today? You talked about last time the kind of the breadcrumbs of your career and how it's taken you into different paths. Tell us the big milestones through your career and how that's ultimately got you to where you are today.
Yes, I think my fascination with people is the thing that kind of spreads
Mm,
across the board. So whether that is studying psychology A level or whether that is then going to marketing because of the psychology around understanding and studying marketing, or deepening further by becoming a coach,
mm,
or deepening my understanding of self, or in the work that I do now, working and thinking about the psychological drivers behind how a team works, why a person does what they do, what we need to consider as we kind of look to implement transformational change. Like the human aspect remains constant, and my piece of curiosity,
yeah.
also even just the what I watch of an evening will always be programs around whether there's a psychological, like why they're doing what
Mm.
they're doing, or relationship experts, or couples therapy, or married at first sight. All of those programs absolutely fascinate me. Yeah, or 90-Day Fiance, where people are marrying between cultures. All of that fascinates me about who we are, what we do, why we do what
Mm.
we do, what drives us, how we connect with others. All fascinates me. So I think that's been the continuous theme. Has that come from the way that I grew up? Maybe part of understanding kind of cultures and why people do what they do, but maybe because I had to understand that in order to communicate and be parts of community and feel accepted. So there's definitely that. But throughout my career, there's been kind of a few key pivots, as my good friend Helen Tupper would say, that have been based on breadcrumbs. So, I started in the PR and promotional sector of the
Mhm.
government. Government felt quite a natural first step for me, having been raised in a military background. And moving from that, which was events and PR and communication, into thinking, actually, I want to do more about strategic marketing, and then
Mm.
choosing more marketing consumer facing roles, because that's kind of where the brand building opportunities were, and finding kind of my passion around strategic marketing or commercial ownership of marketing, and then forming and making choices around those. So I've worked across multiple sectors: public service, civil service, all the way through to retail businesses, small time agency side, before then working with big branded businesses like yourself, Premier Foods,
Mhm.
Britvic, Burger King, Bosch. They were all, big consumer brand businesses, and really understand the power importance of brand, and how that drives commercial growth. And very much being a marketer in organizations where that was valued was really important. I wouldn't say it was necessarily valued across all those organizations, but I was definitely someone who was really passionate about making sure that came to life. So I would say the first kind of 15 years of my career were very much client side, marketing leader, marketing brand owner roles, and absolutely loved that. But what I also love is the marketing profession.
Mm.
I'm really passionate about the marketing profession, and always had this drive and want to continue to learn. And that potentially comes from my mum, actually. She is somebody who has, as I was growing up, she was studying to become a teacher. So I always saw her at the dining room table, furiously learning new skills to achieve the thing that she wanted to achieve, which was to be a maths teacher.
Mm.
So there was definitely something around learning and knowledge being a positive thing. I was a kid that loved the library. I know there
Love
aren't
that.
many of us, but
I love that.
you know, in fact, if you ask my mum where I would ask to go the most, it would be the library
I
growing
love
up.
that. That is so
And
sweet.
yeah, yeah, love books, exhibit A.
Yeah.
Love learning, love growth. One of my values is growth. So I suppose no surprise that not only did I love my marketing studies, I then went on to do postgrad in marketing. And when I was doing my postgrad in marketing, literally before I sat my final exam, probably not the moment I would have chosen, the study centre lead tapped me on the shoulder and she said, "If you pass this, we'd really love you to join the faculty."
Oh, wow.
And I'd never even considered that. Obviously, my mum, being
Yeah.
a teacher, was always like, saw how much she loved and how much that gave her back. She used to teach GCSE students that hadn't passed first time.
Right. Yeah.
So she used to have a real kick through, like, okay, you didn't pass first time. That's okay. You're going to
Mm.
pass with me. Like seeing the change and the shift of the learning of the students that she used to have. And usually them getting that GCSE in maths was an unlocker to whatever their bigger dream was. So, probably a reflection that I've just had Laura for the first time. Maybe there was something around teaching as well and how enjoyable that was. So when that carrot was dangled, I was like, well, what an honor.
Yeah.
Um, let's give this a go. So I used to, whilst I was in client side roles, I used to teach the professional qualifications of the CIM, and I absolutely loved it. Obviously, like the vigilating and the entry to be able to do it was nerve-wracking. However, the showing up once a week, usually of an evening, sometimes weekends, so it was very much an extracurricular because I had a full-time client side brand role, and being in a room full of marketers from all different backgrounds. It could have been telecommunications with Vodafone, or it could
Mm.
be a charity or a consumer durables brand, across the board. And yes, teaching the principles of marketing, sharing what I love, sharing my passion for the subject, why it's so important. But also I was learning so much. It's like, how did marketing look in those
Yeah.
organizations? What the challenges that those marketeers were faced with. As part of the qualifications, they would have to do assignments. So I would then get to see how they would answer those assignment questions or those challenges, the kind of proposed case study that they had to answer in their organization. So I got to learn too. And it really gave me exposure very early on to the challenges that marketers face, how marketing shows up in different organizations, how important it is to learn those skills and embed those
Mm.
skills. And there's some of the principles that I still carry all the way through now
Yeah.
into the capability practice that I lead. Marketing is yes, my passion and my hobby as well as my profession, but the way in which we develop training is very much that training is the start of
Mm.
the transformation journey. It is not the end, and that
Yeah.
still runs true today.
Yeah, amazing. And I really see a red thread from your family in this need of helping people and this passion and this love to help others, really forming your career and what's led
Mm.
you to ultimately creating the Whole Marketeer. And please do tell everyone the epiphany story on the Sun Lounger, because it's such a beautiful story. Like, what was going on at the time? What were you hearing? What ultimately made you say, I actually want to help people in a whole sense as well as in a functional sense? And can you take us back to that Sun Lounge and the epiphany moment and what created your path into now what is the Whole Marketeer?
So after having that 15-year client side corporate career and
Mm.
background, and obviously the teaching, I started a consultancy. So I went to see a coach, started a consultancy called Labyrinth, which was all about step changing the growth of brands, businesses, and agencies and their teams. And so we probably 6 years into this consultancy. So that epiphany, or as I call it, my Jerry Maguire moment, my Sun Lounger moment, was kind of 6 years into that journey. And so I was reflecting. I was reflecting on the 2 weeks that had gone by in Cyprus on holiday, boys in the pool, way too cold for me. And this is before I discovered cold water swimming, which I now love, but way too cold for me. And I was reflecting on every conversation I had with a marketer, whether it was training them, coaching them,
Mm.
mentoring, consulting, it didn't matter. Every marketer was fed up, overwhelmed, unfulfilled, kind of questioning, why am I in marketing? Why is it this difficult? And there was just something in me that was like, that's not okay with me. Like, as I often say to some of my coaches, not on my watch.
Yeah.
Not on my watch will I let you say those narratives. Not on my watch will I allow you to kind of air those beliefs as if they're facts. So not on my watch am I happy with people feeling like that about the marketing profession. But also a real sense of, so what do they need in order, why is this happening, and what do they need in order to make this better? And why this was happening was clear in that marketing's role had shifted from support function to one leading the long-term commercial agenda. Great, that's exactly where marketing should be, in my personal opinion.
Totally.
However, as a result, we are having to lead in a way that we've never had to do before. We have acknowledged the role that having a deep-rooted emotional connection has with consumers and customers, and customer being at the heart, consumer centricity. But actually, what skills have I seen in the great marketers that are able to build that deep-rooted emotional connection? And how can I share that so people feel more able and equipped to build that connection in order to bring plans to life? It's always one thing to write a strategy. It's a whole nother ball game to make it happen. And then how can I also face into the leadership challenges that many marketers are having around how they feel that they should lead? How can they actually practically lead marketing teams and functions as marketing teams and functions grow and their capability and skills grows? And then how can I also address the fulfillment aspect? So if we've got marketers that are going, what are the skills that I need? If they're saying, what are the behaviors that I need to adopt to really have traction internally, bring plans to life, get buy-in, and to build that deep-rooted emotional connection? And then what do I need to do in order to feel fulfilled and make the right career choices for me? And that's where the Whole Marketeer was born. It went, right, how can I, with my trainer hat on, and tell you the key skills that you need in order to technically be able to successful in your job, to lead that long-term commercial agenda, those key core strategic skills? How can I share with you the soft or human skills that I've seen in great marketers that have been able to build that deep-rooted emotional connection with their consumers through empathy and curiosity, but also the skills that are really important to practically bring things to life, like can-do attitude and leading a cross-functional team in an inspirational way? How can I give you tools that allow you to define your leadership style, what the role of leadership is, or role of marketing is in your organization, and things that you can put in place to practically lead, all the way from setting a vision to having capability frameworks and development work streams in place. And then last but by no means least, that first one is with my trainer hat on, the next one is that kind of experience and exposure as a consultant, what I've seen in great marketers, having trained thousands of marketers. How do I now put my coaching hat on and give you some tools and key principles to allow you to build your personal understanding? So you build on the self-awareness that you already have, but build your personal understanding of self. And get really clear on what it is that drives and motivates you, what your values are, your purpose, why you get out of bed in the morning, what it is that you want. We know the benefits of having goals allows us to edge closer to them, and that's where fulfillment lies, when we're doing things that edge us closest to our goals or play to our values. And also, how do we face into the things that are holding us back from achieving what we want? And so that sun lounger moment of like, all of this was typed furiously, Laura, into my iPad. I hadn't taken my laptop on holiday with me. My husband came out the pool and he was like, oh yeah, so what's for lunch? And I was like, I'm not hungry. Like it was
created an empire from my sun lounger.
Like, I'm creating a philosophy to change the way in which people perceive. Like, obviously I didn't say any of that. I was just like, I'm not hungry. It's fine. Sort yourselves out. And I didn't have a laptop, so I'm literally on the little small keypad. If anyone's ever got an iPad Pro, it's like that little small keypad, trying to get it in there so that I didn't lose the thought or trail of thought that I had. And a fire was lit within. If you've seen the Jerry Maguire film, like he's moving around like agitatedly while he's writing his manifesto, like that rung true. I was like agitated, couldn't stop until it was out. Really felt like, what can I do? What am I going to need to learn? What am I going to need to do in order to make this happen? So yeah, the fire was lit. And since then it started as a podcast around those holistic skills. It then became a book with a clarity on all of those skills, about
Mm.
how what good looks like, how to assess yourself, exercises, tools, techniques to help marketers have successful and fulfilled careers, to be supported and empowered in all that they do. And today it's a transformational and capability consultancy where we work with marketing leaders to bring that to life in their team. So yeah, that was the Jerry Maguire epiphany moment,
Yeah.
Laura.
Oh no, it's incredible. And you know what? The best things get created out of a deep passion and a fire. And you spot something, you go, I love your term of not on my watch. And you're going, I can see such a problem here and such issues here. And people that are so deeply passionate, but tired and burnt out and questioning whether they should be in a function that they're really, really good at. And isn't that a shame? And how do we help? So I love that the business was created out of such fire and such passion, and arguably that everything that you built around the Whole Marketeer, from the resources, the consultancy, and the transformational nature that you do with teams and organizations, I feel that we need that more now than we ever have. There is so much going on in the world. There is so much change. And I think, unfortunately, LinkedIn can be such a, in a good way. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's lots of things
Mm.
I love about LinkedIn, but it can sometimes be quite a performative show of what's happening and there's all this greatness. But actually, I feel like for our industry and marketing, there's quite an undercurrent of change in the industry that is or isn't being talked about, whether that's huge amount of redundancies, the disappearing senior and middle level management,
Hmm.
super, super stretched teams, unrealistic expectations, of course, AI that is changing everything.
Yeah.
And I feel a kind of an undercurrent of crisis of confidence in the industry and of course in marketing, because it feels like it's infecting marketing so much. And I feel the resources and what you talk about and what your organization does is so needed in these times of change. And you have such a powerful voice in terms of speaking out about some of these issues that are happening and how we can support marketers directly in an ever-changing world. And I think
Mm.
marketing is often the function that feels it first, I feel. What's going on? Because everything's happening all at the same time. Like, we've talked before about the disappearing senior levels and
Hmm.
the in-betweening roles and what's happening in marketing, because I feel it. I don't know if I always see it, especially on platforms like social media.
Interesting, because I see it, feel it, and have witnessed
Mm,
it firsthand, and sometimes on social media too. To be
mm,
honest, I think it's one of those. If you start looking for it, you will find it very, but
yeah.
also very easily.
Mm,
And all of those things that you mentioned there, Laura, I know we spoke offline, are true. And why do I think it's happening? In fact, I got asked this very question by Charlotte at Marketing Week yesterday. Why do I think it's happening? I think it's happening for many reasons. So first is the breadth of role has changed. That's what was the same reason why many marketers were feeling overwhelmed when I had that Jerry Maguire moment. So the breadth of roles have changed. Many of the marketing leaders I speak to, I sit in a very privileged position where people share very openly in a trusted space with me and the challenges they face. So increased role, whether that is you're in a comms function and now you've got value proposition added, whether you're a value proposition area now you've got innovation and bring that commercially to life.
mm,
Like, it's constantly growing and evolving, but not necessarily always with a red resource being matched with it. So
yeah.
not necessarily with a headcount increase, not necessarily with increased investment. And so, we keep hearing this terminology, can we do more with less? Well, we kind of have to do more or less, because it's almost like we're so happy that we've been asked to the table to lead on the things that we've been wanting to lead
Yeah.
for so long, that we go, yep, we'll do it. We said we wanted it. Yes, please, we'll have it,
Yeah.
even if it means we're £2.50. So that's the first thing. I think so therefore people are doing more with less. I
Mm,
think the way in which we do marketing has changed. So, I'm sure, Laura, you will remember the times when we used to do our strategic planning. You'd lay down your annual calendar, you'd map your planned activities, maybe against some seasonal peaks, you'd have your key campaign
mhm,
bursts, and you'd plan, right? You'd
yeah.
plan, you'd have busy periods in your year, which would normally be around strat planning season, or maybe when
Mhm,
your campaign was live, or when you naturally had a seasonal peak. But there were moments where you did have chance to pause, reflect, learn, capture those learnings, bring them in, commission ad hoc research. And actually, the way in which we interact with consumers and the way in which we communicate now is always on.
yeah.
So we are always on. We have channels. We want to be part of the dialogue. We want to be part of social trends. We want to be part of whatever's been talked about. And I mean, let's just talk about even just yesterday, Brooklyn given Beckham. So whenever this comes out, Brooklyn Beckham made his
Mhm.
announcement yesterday. I couldn't believe how quickly, not only was that news shared, and I'm not somebody who watches the news, and that's out
Yeah.
of personal choice. I prefer to kind of get a download of what's happening in the world through a
Mm.
different platform that's got no unconscious bias, got no biases on it. That's the whole of the piece. But with this, I couldn't believe not how quickly was I absorbing the news, but the perspectives, people's spin-offs of it, the social media content that being created on the back of
So
it,
fast.
the brands that were kind of like
Mm.
leveraging this. Is I was just blown away. And I think there is such pressure to be reactive, be immediate, be part of the dialogue, which means that we are always on, we are always
Mm.
heightened, we're always having to be ready, we're always having to be more alert.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we've got compound impact of tiredness and exhaustion. We've gone from COVID to permacrisis to recession to trends, this new way of working. So it's like what surrounds us isn't great. Often people look into marketing to go, so how are we going to turn around this brand? How are we going to turn
Mm.
around this business? How are we going to deliver growth? Great. That's the right door to be knocking on. But sometimes we just need a minute. We haven't had chance to kind of rebuild our energy levels up. So we're always kind of almost like charging our battery on our phone, but never to 100.
Yeah. Always in the red.
Always in the red.
Mm.
And having to have an operating system that's quicker with more apps and more responsibility of what that phone needs to deliver. And also new skills always coming, which I do love that about our profession. It's always ever changing
Yeah.
and evolving. It keeps it new. It keeps me having to learn new things. But with that also becomes pressure.
Mm.
So, I think about other teams that I'm working with at the moment where new channels have been added to their team or new communication channels that they need to adopt, or they are now thinking about adopting some of the latest thinking around psychological biases or into their testing. Like there is always something new that we want to test, evolve, learn with, grow with, and need to, because we need to be at the forefront and be doing things better than we have. So I don't work in any other profession, but thinking about my friends and family around me, I don't see anybody else's profession moving at the pace that ours does. And it's been nice to see over the last 10 years, CMOs come into role, chief
Mm.
customer officers come into role, marketing having that board and that seat at the table, have more senior roles added into the infrastructure. But as you mentioned earlier, I'm also seeing a reduction in those formal roles. I'm
Yeah.
seeing an increase in marketers knocking on our door. We have an offering called
Mm.
Trusted Advisor. So it's for the senior marketing person in the organization, or any person, any
Mhm.
marketer that wants support, to bring whatever's keeping them up at night, to have the support and guidance, both the kind of coaching and mentoring offering. And the increase we've had for that, where head of marketing, a marketing director, is now the most senior marketer because the CMO, their VP, is gone. And gone because there's a change in direction in the business, gone because question mark, is it an expensive headcount? Although I'm not
Yeah.
seeing that expensive headcount happen in other seats around the board. Is it, that there was differences in kind of cultural or directional
Mm.
reasons, or how they want marketing to be shaped? There's loads of reasons why it's happening, it may be happening, but it is worrying me,
Yeah.
because we've fought for so long to get that seat on the table. Why are we now losing them?
Yeah.
And that's not everybody, but I am seeing it. And as you said there, we do have a lot of people, a lot of senior marketers in particular, out of roles. And therefore they're turning to fractional CMOing or consultancy, which is almost being used as a way to bridge some of those more senior roles. And yeah, it's great that those people are in role and are active in keeping practicing. However, I hope it's not just a short-term fix and those become permanent roles, because there's pros and cons to each. It's great to do an interim role, or maybe a fractional CMO role for a brand that maybe can't afford the CMO role, full-time CMO role yet, doesn't need it maybe yet, gives them strategic direction. But also there's a lot of benefits that come from having a formal full-time marketing leader in role, around the continuity of inspiration, the continuity about clarity about where the brand or business is heading.
Mm.
It's really important for the development of the other marketers to have that sounding board to learn from, to be able to get that strategic clarity. I could go on and on. So I am also seeing the shifts, and I'm seeing a lot of people that are either stepping up or covering multiple roles. and potentially roles that they don't have the skill set yet. So they're having
Yeah.
to learn it very quickly, feeling very overwhelmed and heading for burnout.
Yeah, and it literally was gonna be my next question is how do we manage the burnout in this situation? Because I think there's such an ask to create high performing teams in marketing at the same time of people being overstretched, overwhelmed. As you said, in a lot of organization, the CMO role going and not being replaced. I've been in an organization where that happened. And all that senior leadership disappeared from the C suite and the board level, where the decisions are being made at that most strategic of levels within a
Mm,
business. And the ability for those critical decisions and thinking to flow up to the board disappearing overnight. And also that leadership, that guidance, that strategic foresight also disappearing from the skill set. You balance that and the burnout and the overstretch with we need to be high performing teams. As you said, the marketing industry, our business, our roles changes constantly.
mm.
How on earth do we fix burnout when all this pressure just seems to be adding, not taking away?
So it's so funny that you asked me that high performing question, because my next column piece of Marketing Week that comes out this Friday is all about high performing teams. It's about, are we asking too much
Mm,
to be asking marketing teams to be high performing, given all the challenges that we've just
yeah.
discussed? And also for me, sometimes how terminology means different things to different people. I often see like resilience or authenticity seem to mean different things to different people.
Mm,
High performing is one of those for me. High performing conjures up images of kind of like, just
mm,
keep going, just keep firing with all the energy that you have, with all cylinders to make these things happen. And we all know as humans that's not sustainable. So for me, I almost say, yes, we want high performing, but I then put in brackets successful, fulfilled marketing teams, because
yeah.
for me, it's more important that they are empowered to do their jobs. They have the skill set, the behaviors, the support to do their
Mm,
jobs, but also they are fulfilled and enjoying working with you or your organization and having a fulfilling career for all the benefits that that brings both to them personally, but also to the wider
mm,
organization. And so, is that too much to ask at the moment when we have less seniority in the organization, less clarity, less direction, less strategic thinking? We have less resource, less investment, that classic more with less, and priorities constantly changing and executional needs being always on. Is that too much to ask? I think the
mm,
answer is yes. I think the answer is yes. And that's exactly what I wrote about. What can we do? What can we do if we're not going to get more resource or more investment? We're going to say, use it a contracting exercise, use it in negotiation
yeah.
and go, this is what I need to deliver the number you've given me. If you're going to not change the number, then I'm going to change what I can deliver. Or if you're not going to give me the investment and resource, then these are the priorities that we will deliver instead.
Yeah.
And as you can see, number 6, 7, and 8 are falling off the list. It is about making sure that we really do maximize the resource that we do have as
Mm,
efficiently as possible. All of those ways of working or processes that are sapping energy and time out of the team, how do we streamline them? How do we look and review them so that we are maximizing our resource as efficiently as possible with what we do have? And what are we doing to look after ourselves? Because it's that classic, we can't control the market environment around us. It may be within our influence to do something to change the culture within our organization, and start to do that, but that's not going to happen overnight. Or change the role or how marketing's
mm,
perceived or what we're agreeing to do and deliver with what we need in order to do it well. But therefore, what do we do to look after our team? And what do we do to make sure that we have a workload that is manageable? They do have a workload that they can do with the energy that they have and the resources that they have. We're prioritizing the right work and we're looking out for each other,
mm,
but also that we're prioritizing all the things that help build our well-being and energy. And when I say well-being and energy, I'm not talking about making sure everyone goes to a yoga class on Wednesday. I'm talking
and there's
about,
apples in the kitchen.
and the apples in the kitchen, right? I'm talking
Yeah.
about what is it that that person needs in order to do the things to have the energy that they need, and how can you hold them to account to make sure they do those things so that they can show up the best version of themselves tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if that person needs to run, I mean, personally, as I always joke, I don't run anywhere unless I'm in danger. But, if that person needs to run, if that person needs to go to choir, if that person really fills their cup up by, I don't know, going to a taekwondo class, if
Mm,
somebody really needs to spend time with their children, they don't feel connected, like
mm,
whatever's important to them, know your team well enough so you know what those things are, help them understand what those things are across the 5 well-being pillars, and make sure that they set boundaries around them and you support them to set boundaries around them.
yeah.
So that becomes a priority. And so, as I always say, looking after the marketers in your care, particularly looking after each other, yes, but particularly if you have that responsibility as a leader.
Mm, mm. And I think as well, when that senior level disappears, it's almost how do you then go to the business and ask? Because maybe you are the person needing the support and you have to go up, right? So talking to the organization, exactly what you said about how you make sure you care for your team. Say you're the lone marketeer and that senior person's gone, is being comfortable to go to the organization and say, I need this support. I need
Mm,
this training. This senior person's gone. Therefore, we've got a gap in X. Can you train me up so that we're not feeling the gap within the way that we're working? I think is such an important thing for leaders
mhm.
in marketing to do, but also that individuals can feel the power and feel that they have the permission to ask the business of what do you need to succeed in your role in this ever changing environment, and especially if that senior level disappears within your organization. Wow.
Definitely, definitely. And what's also really important with all of that is psychological safety.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being able to feel safe enough to share that you are feeling overwhelmed and that you're going
Mm,
to need to reprioritize your tasks, and that your energy isn't where it could be, and you're worried about, these are the signs for me when I'm heading for burnout, and knowing your signs and feeling comfortable enough to share those. There is also a lot of organizations where that isn't the case.
yeah.
And particularly, as we mentioned earlier, with a lot of people out of work, there is a thing, well, I don't want to lose my job, so I don't say the thing, I don't share my
Mm,
concerns. And therefore, if you don't feel like that in your organization, once again, you can't change that overnight. It's one conversation at a time. It is about thinking what support you're getting from your peers and your friends outside of work and the people outside of work, so that you do have a safe space to share your frustrations, to reflect on a challenge that you've had, to process it, to think about what's next, to get advice, to get support. I'm a massive advocate for making sure you have trusted advisors around you, and they are invaluable in all of these
yeah.
situations, and be able to know you well enough as well. I always say ex-work wives and husbands are really great candidates for these roles, because they've worked with you historically, they know how you work, they know you well, but they're also not in that organization, so they have enough subjectivity
Mm.
to be able to give you the space to share impartially, potentially without bias, on the situation at least.
And where do you see marketing going? Like, what's the future? Because I feel like I'm hoping we're in the muddle and the mess, that we're going to get some clarity and the waves are going to part and things will be a little bit clearer. What do you think is coming next for marketing? I'm hoping there's going to be a shift in the tide. Do you see that coming? And if so, what do you think is coming next for us?
My hopes are shifts in the tide. As somebody who loves the tide, I love that analogy, Laura. I'm fascinated by the tide. Could talk about the tide all day long on a separate
We'll do
podcast
another podcast.
on tides.
We'll have to do another podcast on tides, and we'll have to also wear leopard print again because we're clearly channeling the same energy today. So
Channeling the same energy. I think what my hopes would be, I would hope that the importance and acknowledgement that senior marketers need their presence in organizations returns. So for whatever reason this temporary thing is happening, let's just hope it's temporary.
yeah.
And that we get better at matching the right CMO or CCO, or enter appropriate job title,
Mm,
to the right organization, where they are known and respected for the strength and ability that marketing and they can bring in shifting the commercial growth and the growth of the organization. Because I think a lot of it is also cultural matching and
mm,
not just the importance of the role. That therefore, as a result, we get the right level of resource needed to do our jobs, and that provides us with some moments of pause, whether that's for upskilling, whether that's for reflection, whether that's reviewing effectiveness, whether that's
mm,
thinking about how we do things differently, more efficiently. That the importance of how we need to develop ourselves holistically is seen, probably with a big emphasis on the personal understanding, I would
yeah.
say. And that if you want to have a team that's full of energy and motivation, that's the unlocker.
Mm.
and embracing that. I would also like to see us actually face into the fact that we need to still close a few capability gaps that we've still not closed. So whilst we are, the classic brief that came in yesterday, want to learn more about AI and how we can embed this within our organization. Yes, but are you still using all your data sources and mining that effectively to actionable insight and embedding that in your strategy, into your campaigns or your comms work, your proposition work, etc., etc.? No, not yet. Okay, so
Yeah.
AI is not going to unlock that for you.
Mm.
It could help you in some of that thinking, but that's still a core skill you need to address. Or the same for strategic thinking, the same for commercial acumen. I think there are still some massive skill gaps in those areas for sure. Thinking 10, 11, 12 years ago, where we had a skill shortage in the industry for a while, people not wanting to come in, people got over promoted. And so that kind of middle management, head of level isn't as strategically skilled as it was historically. And so really making sure that people have faced into that and close some of those gaps as well. And stop doing more with less.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
a lot with what we've got,
Mm.
or getting what we need. And I would love to hear the end of people don't know what marketing is or the value it brings or how do I get a seat at the table. I would love to not hear that narrative anymore, because we've demonstrated the commercial return
Yeah.
and we are the most important seat at the table, or at least working collaboratively with our peers at that level.
Yeah, incredible. And like three big lessons jump out. And I'm hearing from what you're saying is, one, making sure you're doing the due diligence of what you have already. And I was smiling and nodding vehemently throughout that, because every organization I've ever been in has been swimming in data and swimming in knowledge and not necessarily utilizing the best they possibly can. There is so much richness and inherent knowledge within a business that is so underutilized. So I hear that loud and clear and completely agree with you. I think the second point around kind of strategic capabilities, there's been such a swing recently to performance marketing and metrics and short-termism, that I think the skills to still have that strategic anchoring and that vision, so that when the Brooklyn Beckham thing happens, you can go, is this right or not? Should we do this or not? Let's just not move with the wind. Let's make sure we're still anchored in our strategic ability, and making sure marketers are really, really strong in that strategic space. And the third one, I think, is so essential. And I think part of the reason why some organizations are in this sticky place at the moment, because marketing is easy to be seen as a cost line. And it's absolutely not a cost line to be cut, whether that's resources, people, or budget for your actual campaigns and activations, etc. But it's a value driving, profit driving, long-term sustainable growth building function. And I think when organizations lose sight of that, that's when the marketing starts getting cut, whether that's your budget or whether that's your people, or worse, the double whammy. And I think organizations suffer as a result. I mean, COVID was a brilliant example of brands that took their foot off the pedal in media money in COVID, because they didn't feel it was the right thing to do, and actually their long-term equity dropped because they weren't communicating in a time when people wanted to be communicated to. It's not always the right thing to take your foot off the pedal. So such incredible lessons and such powerful things for marketeers. What would you tell leaders about the future of marketing? So we talked about marketing and how you and your organization support them, whether that's technical skills, whether that's holistic well-being and operational skills. What would you tell leaders about the importance of marketing and how essential that is to an organization? Because I think sometimes those are the people that hold the power for the future of where we can go as an industry.
What I would tell business leaders is that marketing can truly lead the long-term commercial growth and protect its current growth, because we're not here for leaky buckets, not on my watch, of the organization, given they have the right resource to understand your customers, to develop propositions and bring those to market that exceed their needs better than anyone else can, have the support of processes and infrastructure to do that quickly with pace, embracing a test and learn and growth mindset culture. And it's given adequate resource and investment, and trusted that the choices that we've made won't happen overnight. So you're going to have to trust us that they will come. And if they don't, we'll find another way to steer that ship to get to the same goal. If I may flex that question slightly as well, Laura,
Please.
I think there's still a lot that we need to do as marketing leaders for that to happen. So, as you mentioned earlier, you sparked a thought in me around, not being a cost, but being an investment. Absolutely. So, if you don't want your budget to be cut, then how do you show and demonstrate that that investment delivers return on investment in the both short term and the long term, and show and demonstrate that you are measuring that money and you understand the impact that that has, not from an effectiveness, how well have I spent the money, but on the commercial return. That you are understanding and owning that P&L, you are understanding the levers that you can pull on every single line of that P&L as a marketer, and demonstrating your commercial acumen in order for marketing to be seen as that commercial engine and to be seen as the one that's leading the agenda. So it's that classic chicken and egg. If you want more budget to deliver growth, then you're going to demonstrate what the current budget delivers growth so that you can have more, and it kind of goes round in a circle. So there is still a lot in our gift and our power that we could be doing better to demonstrate all of those things.
Incredible. We always ask, our final question is the same to all of our wonderful guests. So we call our guests wave makers because they're creating waves on the industry. What advice would you give to aspiring wave makers?
My advice would be, if you've had that moment, that Jerry Maguire, that epiphany moment, that you can do something to help take someone, something, a brand to a better place, then that was brought to you for a reason, and to respect that and use that as your fire and your drive to make it a reality.
Oh, I love that advice so much. I love the sense of you've got permission to go for it, like hold it, chase it, embrace it. Abby Dixon, thank you so much for bringing such honesty, such depth and such heart to this conversation. Your story from childhood moments, moving around the world, and such a powerful reminder that the biggest shifts often start from these small moments. A childhood shaped by empathy, breadcrumb decisions that nudge you career forward, a sun lounger moment, an epiphany of how you can really help marketers in the wholest of ways. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. For everyone listening and watching, keep chasing your curiosity, stay open to the unexpected, and never underestimate the ripple impact of small moments on your life. Abby, thank you so much for today. It's been so wonderful to talk to you.
It's been lovely chatting to you. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Abby. And if you're looking to elevate the human storytelling of your brand, please get in touch with us at the Ripple Impact so we can see how we can turn human stories into brand growth. That is a wrap on this Ripple episode. Tune in weekly for more bold voices and inspiring wave maker guests just like Abby. Don't forget to follow, subscribe and share. And please check out the Whole Marketeer, incredible podcast. My favourite one so far is Nicola Kemp. So incredible. Please do watch that and to really own your voice. I'm Laura Barber. This is the Ripple Impact. We will see you all next week. Abby, thank you so much for your time today. It means the world.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks everyone. Bye for now.